Welcome to video number 3 for Chapter 9, the Confederation and the Constitution. There were passages of public domain legislation during this time period, and the first passage centered around the Old Northwest, which was an area northwest of the Ohio River, east of the Mississippi River, and south of the Great Lakes. The Land Ordinance of 1785, seen in Map 9.2, was set up, and it was basically establishing the orderly process to sell land in the Northwest and to use the proceeds to pay the national debt. So after it was surveyed, the land was divided into townships and then into sections. The 16th section of each township was sold to fund education. This is a map showing the Land Ordinance of 1785. Basically, this shows the Northwest Territory, which was the area previously described, and then how it would be divided into townships, and then townships would be sold off to raise money to pay off debt from the federal government. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 was passed as well, which would set up the governance of the Old Northwest, how the nation would deal with its colonies or territories. So basically, it set up a temporary tutelage and then provided for permanent equality. So it also set up 2 evolutionary territorial stages under subordination to the federal government. Once a territory had 60,000 inhabitants, it could be admitted by Congress as a state. And this ordinance forbade slavery in the Old Northwest. Relations with Britain remained troubled during this time period, and England refused to send a minister to America. They declined to negotiate a commercial treaty or to repeal the navigation laws. They closed the West Indies trade to the States. And they tried, with the help of the Allen brothers of Vermont, to annex the rebellious area to Canada. They maintained a chain of trading posts on U.S. soil in the Ohio River Valley and continued the fur trade with Native Americans. Spain was openly hostile to the new republic. They controlled the all-important Mississippi River on which the pioneers shipped their produce. In 1784, Spain closed the river to American commerce, threatening the West with strangulation, and they claimed large areas north of the Gulf of Mexico. They also schemed with Native Americans to keep Americans east of the Appalachian Mountains. Because Spain and Britain influenced the Native Americans, America was unable to exercise control over half of its territory. Map 9.3 shows the main centers of Spanish and British influence in the war after 1783. France, which was America's friend and ally during the American Revolution, cooled off now that Britain humbled. The North African pirates ravaged America's Mediterranean commerce. The new nation was too weak to fight the pirates and too poor to pay the bribes. Economic problems arose in the United States during the mid-1780s. The system of raising tax money was breaking down, and interest on public debt was escalating. Some states were levying their own tax duties, and some were printing depreciated paper money. This is the time that Daniel Shays' rebellion occurred in western Massachusetts. Impoverished farmers in this rebellion were losing land through mortgage foreclosures and tax delinquencies, but they were veterans of the American Revolution. They were led by Captain Daniel Shays, and these desperate debtors demanded that the states issue paper money, lighten taxes, and suspend property takeovers. Hundreds attempted to enforce the demands, and Massachusetts authorities responded by raising a small army, and skirmishes occurred as a result. After 3 Shaysites were killed and 1 was wounded, the movement collapsed. But Shays' followers were crushed, but the memory remained. These people were veterans who had fought the American Revolution and who were coming home to find their farms in foreclosure. Massachusetts, as a result, passed some debtor relief laws, but Shays' outburst had caused fear among the property class. Civic virtue was insufficient to rein in self-interest, and they needed a stronger central government to block what would be called the mobocracy. How critical were the conditions under the Articles? Conservatives, protecting their wealth, exaggerated the seriousness of the nation's plight. They sought to amend the Articles to create a more muscular, more strong central government. Both friends and critics of the Confederation agreed that it needed strengthening, but disagreed over how much its power should be increased. And the economy actually improved in the late 1780s. But the American government will look at the Articles in terms of revising them to add some needed strength to the federal government. And we'll continue to discuss the development towards the Constitution in our classroom lessons.